Imagine you are sitting in, a really high-stakes job interview.
Oh, stressful.
Right. And it's going incredibly well. The hiring manager leans forward, smiles, and asks about a gap in your resume.
Okay, the classic trap question.
Exactly. And you want to explain that you took some time off to focus on your health, and you proudly announce, well, I stopped to smoke.
Oh, no. Oh, that is painful.
Right. You meant to tell them that you quit a bad habit, but because of one tiny, like almost invisible grammatical choice.
You just told your future boss that you paused your last job specifically to go outside and light up a cigarette.
Yes. Welcome to the deep dive.
That is the ultimate linguistic trap right there.
It really is. Today, we are looking right at you, the learner. If you already understand the basics of English verbs, what we have for you today is going to fundamentally change how you use them.
It really will. Because, usually when we think about mastering a language, we treat it like accumulating bricks.
Yeah, exactly. You just keep memorizing more vocabulary, learning more complex tenses, and building a bigger wall.
Right. There is this widespread assumption that fluency is purely about the size of the dictionary in your head.
But when you listen closely to truly natural, native conversations, the secret to sounding fluent isn't about, like, throwing massive words around.
No, not at all. It is hidden in these subtle structural tweaks.
Which brings us to today's mission. We are going to decode the massive shifts in meaning and tone when you choose between three specific verb forms, which are gerunds, infinitives, and the imperative form.
And that is a fascinating mission. Because English is a language where a tiny adjustment, like adding ing to a word or deciding to drop the subject entirely.
It does so much more than just change the grammar on a whiteboard.
Exactly. It dramatically alters the psychological intensity, the power dynamic, and the exact tone of your communication.
Okay, so let's unpack the psychology here, because before we get into how these tone changes manipulate a room, we need to understand why these forms even exist.
Right. Why do we use them?
Yeah. Linguists generally point to two major players when talking about action versus concept, the gerund and the imperative. Let's look at the gerund first.
Okay, so grammatically, a gerund is just a verb ending in ing that functions as a noun.
Right. But why do we do that?
Well, we do it to create psychological distance. Think about human evolution and language. Sometimes we need to talk about an action without actually doing it.
Or without demanding that someone else do it.
Right,
Yeah.
precisely. We need to capture an action and freeze it, turning it into a concept that we can safely examine. And that is what a gerund does.
Because it acts like a noun, it can do anything a noun can do. Like, it can be the subject of a sentence, right? Like, running is healthy.
Yeah, or it can be the object, like I love baking. Or it can even follow a preposition, like she is afraid of flying.
And the literature provides this brilliantly simple trick for spotting a gerund in the wild.
Oh, the replacement trick.
Yeah, if you can replace that ing word with the word it or something, you've got a gerund. So, take I love baking.
Swap out the action for a pronoun. I love it.
It works perfectly.
It's a flawless test.
Okay.
But we do have to be careful not to confuse a gerund with the present continuous tense, which also uses ing.
Right, that can be super tricky.
Yeah. If you say, she is baking a cake, the baking is actively happening in reality. It is a living verb.
Right, she has the flour out, the oven is on.
Exactly. But in the sentence, I love baking, the baking isn't happening right now. It is a frozen concept.
The activity itself is the object of your affection. That distinction makes total sense. Now let's contrast that frozen concept with the imperative form.
Well, the imperative is the exact opposite of a concept. It is pure, raw reality.
It uses the base form of the verb, right?
Oh, yes, but it strips away absolutely everything else. There's no subject. There's no tense. It is just the verb fired like an arrow. Stand. Sit down. Come here.
It is incredibly stark. It's like if a verb is a movie, the imperative is the director on set yelling action.
I like that analogy.
Right. You are demanding immediate physical movement in the real world. But the gerund is just the title of the movie printed on a poster.
It's the concept of the action. Sitting there passively on a wall?
Exactly.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize the mechanics at play. The imperative forces immediate reality, while the gerund allows for abstract contemplation.
And once you grasp that fundamental difference between a raw action and a frozen concept, you start to see how choosing between them completely rewires the power dynamics of a sentence.
Which brings us to command intensity. Because sentence construction essentially dictates how much power you are wielding over the person listening to you.
Right. Like if you take a gerund and use it as a subject, like running is healthy, you create a very soft observational tone.
Yeah, you aren't forcing anyone to put on their shoes and jog. You are just stating a gentle fact about a concept.
But look what happens when we switch to a direct imperative verb.
Take standard instructional phrases. Eat plenty of vegetables, or stop and look before you cross the road.
All the conceptual padding is completely gone.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
strip away the distance, the tone shifts instantly from a gentle observation to an immediate command.
You are no longer discussing an idea, you are dictating behavior.
Right.
Wait, hold on. If imperatives are that direct and they strip away all the conversational padding, doesn't that make them inherently rude?
That's a common question.
I mean, if I walk into the office and tell my boss, give me that report or sign this, HR is definitely getting a phone call.
Oh, absolutely they are.
So why would we ever use imperatives instead of softer gerund-based sentences?
Well, that is the exact trap a lot of learners fall into.
Mm-hmm.
They assume that directness automatically equals rudeness.
Right.
But imperatives aren't inherently rude, they are just powerful. And that power is absolutely essential for clarity and survival in our daily lives.
Okay, I'm skeptical. In what context is that raw power acceptable?
Think about situations where ambiguity is dangerous or, counterproductive. Reading a recipe, for instance.
Oh, sure.
You don't want the author's philosophical observations on culinary arts. You want absolute clarity. Bake for 30 minutes. Mix well.
That makes sense.
Or think about emergency situations.
Mm-hmm.
You don't yell. Leaving the burning building is highly recommended. You just yell, get out.
Okay, fair point. Running away from the bear is a healthy choice, probably isn't going to save my life.
Precisely. Or consider asking for directions. You need the local to say, turn left at the corner.
Right, because if they used gerunds and said turning left at the corner is a good idea, it introduces ambiguity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are they suggesting a scenic route? Are they offering an opinion? The imperative removes the guesswork.
That makes perfect sense for survival and navigation. But what about standard everyday conversation? Because turn left is fine, but give me the coffee still feels pretty aggressive.
And that is why language guides heavily emphasize the use of softeners. Because an unsoftened imperative in casual conversation absolutely sounds like a dictator's order.
Right, so we have to mitigate that raw intensity.
We do. We introduce buffers. We add please, as in please come in. Or we use modal structures like would you, creating phrases like, would you please clear the table?
It's fascinating how much control you have as a speaker. I mean, switching between a gerund observation and an imperative command completely flips the social hierarchy of the room.
It really does.
You go from a casual, equal footing conversation to an authoritative instructional dynamic just by dropping the subject and hitting the base verb.
It is the ultimate tool for managing a room's energy.
Okay, so we've established how gerunds soften the tone by turning actions into concepts, and imperatives dial up the intensity.
Yes.
But here is where the English language decides to throw a massive curveball. Because sometimes you don't actually get to choose your tone.
No, you don't.
Sometimes the language forces you to use a gerund after certain verbs. You literally do not have a choice.
Yes, we are entering the territory of unbreakable rules.
Linguists often refer to a golden list of verbs. These are verbs that must, without exception, be followed by a gerund, never an infinitive.
Like the verb admit. You cannot say, I admit, to make a mistake.
It violates the structural logic of the language. You have to say, I admit making a mistake.
Other highly common examples from this mandatory list include avoid, as in you should avoid eating too much sugar.
Or deny, like he denied stealing the cookie.
Right. And to help learners remember these forced gerund verbs, grammar guides often provide mnemonic devices.
Yeah, and there's one specific acronym that shows up frequently in the sources, and I have to say it is delightfully atrocious.
It is deeply eccentric, yes.
The mnemonic to remember these verbs is the phrase, Mr. Doctor prohibits me and R.
So weird.
Mr. Doctor prohibits me and R. That sounds like a poorly translated telegram from, like, a Cold War spy novel. Let's break this down because I need to know how this weird little acronym justifies its existence.
Well, it operates as a memory hook for the most common verbs on the golden list. The letters stand for specific verbs. M is for mind. D is for delay.
Okay.
P is for practice. M is for miss. A is for avoid.
Still with?
V is for void, which is used here to help you remember the word whisk. And finally, the R stands for verbs like recommend and resist.
Wait, stop the deep dive for a second.
Yeah.
V is for void, which is supposed to help me remember the word. Risk.
I know.
That is a terrible mnemonic. The letter doesn't even match the target word. Who authorized this?
I know, it completely breaks the rules of a standard acronym. But there is actually a psychological phenomenon at play here called the von Restorff effect, or the isolation effect.
What's that?
Cognitive scientists point out that when something is aggressively weird, absurd, or out of place, human memory retains it far better than something logical but boring.
So because V for void to remember risk is so aggressively stupid, I'm ironically never going to forget it.
Exactly. The absurdity creates a cognitive speed bump. It forces your brain to stop and process the information, which burns it into your long-term memory.
Okay.
It provides a mental checklist. If you find yourself speaking and you use one of the Mr. Doctor verbs, that eccentric alarm bell goes off in your head and you know an ing gerund absolutely must follow it.
Okay, I concede. It's brilliantly terrible. But as strange as Mr. Doctor is, that's just rote memorization.
True.
The literature shows that there is a much more dangerous territory for anyone trying to master English. There is a category of verbs that can take either a gerund or are an infinitive.
Yeah.
They don't force you into one structure, but, and this is the terrifying part, they completely change their meaning depending on which one you choose.
This is where true fluency shines. Linguists often call these the shapeshifters, or the tricky verbs, and the consensus usually focuses on what we can call the big four.
The big four. This is the part that genuinely blew my mind when I first realized the mechanics behind it.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Let's look at the first of the big four. Remember and forget. Why does the meaning shift so drastically?
Well, it all comes down to the psychological direction of the timeline. Using a gerund with remember or forget looks backward. It points to a lived memory.
Right.
So if you say, I forgot locking the door, it means the action occurred. You actually did lock the door in the past, but your brain has lost the memory of doing it.
Okay, so the action is safe. You did it.
Right. But if you swap that gerund for an infinitive, the timeline flips. You are now looking forward toward an obligation or a potential action.
I forgot to lock the door.
Yes, that means you failed to perform the action entirely.
Which is a massive real-world difference. I forgot locking the door means you might have, OCD, but your house is secure.
Exactly.
But I forgot to lock the door means your front door is wide open and you might be getting robbed right now.
Precisely. One is a failure of memory, the other is a failure of action. And this exact same dramatic, reality-altering shift happens with the second of the big four, which is the verb stop.
Oh. Which brings us right back to our job interview nightmare from the beginning of the deep dive, the smoking example.
Yes, the classic mistake.
If you say he stopped smoking using the gerund, what is actually happening structurally?
Well, you were taking the concept of smoking, the habit itself, and you were terminating it. The gerund represents the existing reality, and the verb stop ends it. He quit the habit entirely.
But if our poor job applicant says, I stopped to smoke, using the infinitive, the mechanics change completely.
Yes, because the infinitive to smoke often functions grammatically as an order to smoke. It indicates a purpose or a future goal.
So he stopped to smoke means he paused his current forward momentum, whether he was walking, working, or driving.
Specifically for the purpose of having a cigarette.
It is the exact opposite reality. One guy is improving his lung capacity, and the other guy is literally lighting a match outside the office.
It's a beautifully dangerous grammatical trap. Now, the third shape-shifting verb is try, and this one is incredibly common in professional settings.
Walk us through it. What's the difference between trying a gerund and trying an infinitive?
Well, if you use try plus a gerund, you are experimenting with a solution. You are suggesting a method to see if it yields a result. Imagine a computer crashes. Someone might say, try restarting it.
So restarting isn't necessarily hard to do. Pushing a button is easy. You're just seeing if that specific concept solves the broader problem.
Exactly. You are testing the gerund. But try plus an infinitive implies making a difficult, concerted effort against an obstacle.
Like, I am trying to learn Japanese.
Right. You aren't casually experimenting with Japanese to see if it fixes your computer. You are pushing yourself toward a difficult goal.
Okay, that makes sense. Try restarting is an experiment. Try to finish the marathon is an intense effort.
Exactly.
What is the final verb of the big four?
The final one is regret.
Yeah.
And the shift here is heavily tied to emotional distance and formality.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Regret with a gerund is personal, internalized sorrow about a past reality. I regret telling him the secret. You are looking backward at an action you performed, and you feel remorse.
The gerund is the past mistake. So what about the infinitive?
Regret with an infinitive is almost exclusively used as a formal, structural buffer for announcing bad news in the immediate future. We regret to inform you.
Ah, the classic corporate rejection letter.
Yeah.
We regret to inform you that we went with another candidate.
Yes.
They don't actually feel personal sorrow. It's just a polite, forward-looking formality.
Exactly. It removes the personal emotion and replaces it with professional procedure.
Okay, stepping back and looking at these big four shapeshifters, remember, stop, try, regret. Is there a unifying philosophy here?
There really is.
How do you, as a learner, keep this straight in your head without memorizing 100 different context rules?
If we connect all these examples to the bigger picture, a very clear, fascinating pattern emerges. Gerunds almost always ground us in actual experienced reality.
Right.
They refer to past memories, existing habits, actual experiments you could perform, or past mistakes you've made.
Because they are concepts. They are solidified things you can point to in your timeline.
Precisely. Infinitives, on the other hand, almost always point to abstract potential. They point outward to future duties, formal intentions, uncompleted goals, or purposes yet to be fulfilled. The gerund represents what is or what was. The infinitive represents what needs to be done.
Reality versus potential. That is such a powerful, elegant way to filter the language. The gerund grounds you, while the infinitive propels you forward.
It's a great mental model.
Which actually sets us up perfectly for the final major grammatical structure we need to explore today.
We'll do it.
Because infinitives deal so heavily with future actions and potential, there is a highly common sentence structure that relies entirely on the infinitive to get other people to do things.
Ah, you were talking about the persuasion pattern.
Yes. The blueprint for getting things done in English, the pattern goes like this. You have a verb, followed by a person, followed by to do something, which is the infinitive.
It is the absolute go-to structure in English for communication, delegation, and persuasion.
It really is everywhere.
The literature is full of examples of this sequence in action. My boss advised me to take a course. The sign warns people not to swim here. She persuaded him to change his mind.
Verb, person, infinitive. Boss advised me to take. Warns people not to swim. Persuaded him to change.
If you look closely at the mechanics, it acts as a bridge between two entities. You have the initial action of the speaker, the advising, the warning, the persuading.
Right.
That action is directed at a specific object, which is the person. And then the infinitive acts as the vector, the arrow, pointing that person toward the desired future reality.
It's basically conversational engineering. I mean, think about how a manager uses this versus a friend.
Yeah, good point.
A friend might use a gerund observation. Taking a course is a good idea. It's passive. But a leader uses the persuasion pattern. I advise you to take the course. It locks the person onto a trajectory.
It assigns responsibility and outlines the exact potential action simultaneously.
So when you pull all these pieces together, the gerunds, the imperatives, the infinitives, you realize that what we are talking about isn't really a grammar lesson at all.
No, not really.
It is a toolkit for human interaction.
Yeah.
Mastering these subtle shifts gives you total control over how you instruct, persuade, and navigate the world around you.
It is the exact difference between being a passive participant who just strings vocabulary words together and being an active director who shapes the flow and outcome of a conversation.
Let's do a rapid-fire recap of the toolkit we've built today. First, we explored gerunds, those ing verbs functioning as nouns.
They create psychological distance, turning raw actions into safe concepts, which softens your tone.
Right. Second, we looked at imperatives. These are the direct, subjectless base verb commands that strip away the padding for the sake of survival and clarity.
Just remember to use softeners like please in the office so HR doesn't get involved.
Exactly. Third, we navigated the golden list of verbs, guarded by the absurdly memorable Mr. Dr. mnemonic, which absolutely demand a gerund to follow them.
And finally, we decoded the shapeshifters. The tricky verbs like stop and forget that wildly change their meaning depending on whether you follow them with a reality-grounded gerund or a future-focused infinitive.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, expanding on what we've discussed today. We have focused heavily on personal conversations and job interviews.
But next time you walk down a busy street, or you're cooking a meal, or navigating an airport, look at the physical signs and the printed text around you.
Okay, what are we looking for?
Notice how our entire built environment is paved with direct imperatives. Stop, push, keep off the grass, insert card, add sugar.
It really is everywhere. The world is constantly yelling action at us.
It is. Now run a thought experiment. Imagine how chaotic, inefficient, and strangely passive the world would feel if all of that civilizational infrastructure suddenly used gerunds instead.
Oh, man.
Imagine approaching a busy four-way intersection, and instead of a red octagonal sign that screams SDOP, there's a gentle sign that reads, "Stopping is advised."
Huh. Or a high-voltage electrical box that says, not touching these wires is highly appreciated.
Exactly.
We would have absolute anarchy, traffic accidents everywhere, society would crumble.
It would. And it proves a vital point. Grammar isn't just an arbitrary set of rules printed in a dusty textbook to frustrate language learners.
No.
It is the very architecture of how society directs human behavior, maintains order, and ensures our mutual survival.
Which brings us right back to the beginning. When you learn a language, vocabulary is just the horsepower. It's the raw fuel.
Yeah.
But these verb forms, the imperatives demand, the gerunds concept, the infinitives potential, that is the steering wheel. That is how you actually drive the language and dictate where the conversation goes.
Perfectly said.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your ears open this week and practice spotting these hidden structures out in the wild.
You will be amazed at how much control they really have over your daily life.
See you next time.